Hello, everybody here. Welcome to another episode of Riveting Trips with Jeanie Colclough. I am your host and your guest, and I'm going to guide you through your travels with my friends and colleagues around the world. And we're going to focus primarily on this podcast about family-friendly travel to destinations you may have been before or never explored. So hopefully we'll give you some inspiration. And if you like what you hear, please contact us for trips. And so in this episode, I'd like to welcome you to my friend Usha Rao. Usha, I'm going to let you take it away and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jeanie. It's been a pleasure coming on to your podcast. Thank you for the opportunity. I think this is a fun thing that you're doing, and I'm glad I'm part of the process. A little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for 3 decades. I'm dating myself. Of that, 2 of the decades have been under my own umbrella is Rao Travel, and started out with what everybody used to do, which was ticketing, and somehow that never was my interest. I always wanted to do full-blown vacation planning, and that was my strength as well. Even before I started travel, that was my strength, where I would sit down, open a map, and kind of figure out how far is one place to the other, what is the best way to get there, and things like that.
Before the
So
advent of Google Maps, right?
exactly, exactly. So that's the same strength going on, and it's been great. I've had the pleasure and blessed with some good clients. It's been word of mouth. I haven't had the opportunity or found the need to actually advertise. So that's sort of nice.
That's awesome.
And organically growing slowly, but it's grown. So
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So
Okay. So I wanted to talk about your expertise, right? Can you tell us about your areas of expertise? And then today we'll talk about one of those areas.
I like my expertise, I would say, is really putting trips together for families and multi-gens, right? There's a wide gamut of interest, wide gamut of age group. So trying to focus on all of that takes a little bit of time and patience. And I find that's definitely the strength that I bring to my clients. And destination wise, I find it most rewarding to plan trips for India, of course. That's where I'm originally from. So and it's grown tremendously as a
Right.
destination. So it's fun to do that. And I'm planning trips for Spain, Italy, Peru. So these are, I mean, like, I'm doing most countries, but the idea is to do for families and see what is it that they need. And because I've been in this for a while, it started out with my clients having younger families,
Right.
so I would do things differently. Now suddenly their children are grown, they're either teenagers or they're gotten into college, so their interests have changed. So it's sort of I'm growing with my clients as well, where I find out what their interests are. So that's it's fun actually, but that's the overall strength
That's
that
the
I
evolution,
think I
right?
bring to my client.
Yeah. I mean, I think we
Yeah,
talked about
exactly.
before the call, we talked about how, at least in my perception or of a lot of client perceptions, is that India is a huge trip and undertaking to take, especially if you're coming from
Right.
California, where it doesn't matter which way you fly, it's still going to take you about the same time. It doesn't, right?
Yes,
So
20 hours, 22
yes,
hours to get to India. Yes,
from the
exactly.
West Coast. So how can you dispel some of those ideas or myths about traveling to India being too difficult with children, and the best times to
Okay.
go?
So I think from having done it for so long, I would say families, even with young children, should really think of going to India, because there's so much happening in India without you even planning anything, right? I mean, you could be in an area where you could suddenly see an elephant on the road, or you're seeing monkeys along the way. And these are things that the young mind gets really excited looking at it. And you're seeing the country from their set of eyes, their view, versus just thinking, oh my God, this is the traffic is stopped. Why? Because there is a cow on the road. Some of that has actually reduced, to be really honest, from like when I grew up in India. Yes, there were definitely cows that stopped us, but now there has been a big change in the way the country has grown. It is different. But why I actually like India, I'll tell you, the biggest reason is they're very, very family friendly. You have a young child, you can stay at the most fancy hotel. There'll be somebody or the other who will come help you with your child. You want to sit at a nice restaurant and have dinner. They will come make sure your kids are comfortable. If they're done with their food and you're not done, they'll ask your permission and ask you whether can I entertain them while you finish your dinner.
Wow. So you're
So
totally pampered, huh? Is
you're
that what?
totally pampered and you feel good. I mean, because they're right there. It's not babysitting. They're just making sure that they're keeping an eye on your kids. So it's really nice. I mean, I don't see that happening a lot in other destinations. So that's what
Yeah, I don't
I
think
like
unless
India.
there's a kids club or something, really.
Right.
I don't see that. Okay. So
Yeah.
that sounds like that's a lot for the sights of all kids and senses for them to experience upon arrival.
Right.
So if it's the first time that they're going to India,
Yeah.
let's say it's a couple of weeks, what kind of itinerary would you imagine? You can't obviously explore the whole country in 2 weeks, right? So which regions do you think would the first time client want to go explore?
So the standard, what everybody likes to do is actually go to Delhi. This is the capital. Then they want to go to Agra because they
Agra,
want to
Taj
see
Mahal,
Taj
right?
Mahal. Then where next? The where next, depending on how old your children are, I would say you should do Rajasthan because so Rajasthan is one of those states that was a princely state. I mean, there were little kingdoms and little towns and villages everywhere. And that came together after independence to become one state. And what's unique about that state is they have a very high level of hospitality. So it's a lot of hands-on kind of how can I help you, pampering. Even in a not so fancy place, you will have people being extremely hospitable. So that takes away some of the pressures we have when we're traveling with young kids, because suddenly they treat you like family. So that would be the basic first time traveler with children. That's what they should be doing. If they have more time, then of course we start looking at other parts of the country and
How
start
about
going
in terms
south.
of kid-friendly activities while they're on such an itinerary? What kind of activities do you see or plan for your clients?
So the type of activities could be like a painting class with a painter, like an artist. They show you how to do. I don't know if you're familiar with this. In Rajasthan, that's where they started doing miniature paintings, like
Okay. Yeah.
literally small, itty bitty, and it's
Yeah,
so
painting.
detail oriented. So you can actually have a workshop with that artist and learn the art of doing miniature paintings. So that's one. The other one is block printing. That's a big deal as well. Learn how to carve out the wooden blocks
Hmm.
with a craftsman. Then they use that block to dip into dye that they've made, that they will use that to put on your fabric, and they show you how they dry it, and then you take that home as a souvenir. So
That sounds like
there's
fun.
yeah. So these are like hands-on activities
Right. For
that
kids.
young kids really like. If you're slightly older, then there are like bicycle tours that you could go on. You can go on a hiking tour. And when I say tour, I'm not saying like you're joining a tour. We're talking private guides
Right.
who come take
Yes.
you,
Yeah.
it's just for you and your family, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
I think Usha and I both believe that in the the need for a private guide, right? I mean, I
Yes.
think private guides really help you navigate and cut down on wasted time and
Mhm.
energy that people who like to DIY it, that's great. You can DIY it, but
Yeah,
why worry too much, especially when you're going somewhere new
exactly.
and having kids. I think it's also very different when you travel with your children versus if I'm traveling alone, right?
Absolutely.
If I'm traveling
Absolutely.
alone, I can kind of go with wherever the chance may take me, wherever fortune may
Right.
lead me. But with children, I think I prefer things a little bit more
Yeah.
pre-planned.
And you can't underestimate the value of landing in a new place and finding somebody already waiting for you with
Right.
your it's such a pleasure to actually see that. And I go to India every year. And even then, when I see somebody standing with my name, I get all excited. I'm like, oh, finally the guy is there. I don't have to worry about anything.
How about in terms of seasonality? When do you think? I mean, obviously there's the winter break, right? But then summer is the longest vacation for all school age kids.
Right.
Is it better to go as early as possible, or does it really not matter so much in the summer months?
So summer months, you have to really figure out first I would say they need to identify what would they like to do. There are areas of India where there are like the mountainous areas where it can be a little cooler, so you go into the mountains. But you want to keep away from monsoon. Monsoon ranges differently from different parts of the country.
Okay.
But typically, July, August gets a lot of rain all over. So you don't want to do that. If your kids get out of school by, let's say, mid-May or early June, then I would say just go right then and there.
Right.
And the way people manage the heat, which is similar to Europe actually, when it gets really hot, everybody's sitting inside their hotel room, right? Or they'll sit in a place where there's air conditioning. You kind of take it easy, enjoy a leisurely lunch, have a siesta, and then go out. That's pretty much what you would do even in India, I think.
That's it sounds like an amazing vacation, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
it's a hotel has a pool, nothing like it, right? You jump in the
yes.
pool and let your kids
Yeah.
enjoy.
I
So
think kids definitely, I think that seems to be a bargaining chip for my daughter. She always asks, is there a pool?
yeah,
And to be quite honest, before I had kids, I never even considered having a pool in a
right,
hotel. Like I didn't really understand the draw. I'm like, who spends their time in a pool when they're in a foreign country?
right.
But now with kids, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Okay, I totally
Yeah,
understand now. You know,
kids make it real for us, doesn't it? I mean, when
yes,
you
you have to kind
discover,
of slow it down. You can't travel the way you used to when you were
yeah,
pre-kids, pre-kids, post-kids.
ex- exactly, exactly. But I think it's enjoyable to see a destination through your children's eyes, though.
Yes, yes. You
Right,
definitely discover things, and there's parks that we obviously entertain and go entertain our kids at, or we always make sure that there's some dessert shop around the corner, and you kind of
right.
say, okay, well, how
Yeah,
many gelatos can we feed you today? So it's just
exactly.
something like that, right?
Yeah,
Something that makes it, and I think that's what you keep is you keep the memories. You don't keep the material objects at all. I think
no,
the
no.
travel is really what matters the most.
Yeah, I mean, even today, one of our trips to Italy, that's what we ended up doing. It was so hot. We literally went from one gelato store
Mm.
to the other. And that's what everybody remembers in a family. They all say, oh, that gelato over there was really good versus this gelato. So,
Yeah. I think the first time I took my kids to Rome in like 2019 or 2017, I forget. And my daughter went out and walked with me. We were staying near the Pantheon and we walk around Piazza Navona and places like that. And she comes back after like an hour and a half out with me. And my son, who stayed in the hotel, didn't want to go outside because it was so hot. Just want to sit and watch TV in the AC.
yeah.
He goes, "What'd you do?" And she goes, "I had gelato." He's like, "Yeah, I had gelato." She goes, "No, I had gelato 3 times. Mommy bought me 3 gelatos in a span of an hour and a half." So I think like she still remembers that, right? And that was
Yeah,
like what, 5 years ago? And she was
right.
only like 4 or 5 years old. That's her memory of Rome.
Yeah,
Gelato. I had gelato like 3 gelatos in an hour and a half.
right. Where you
So
would never have approved that if you were sitting at home.
no, you wouldn't. He's like, "What? That's not fair." I said, "Well, you stayed at home." Okay. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm going to wrap up this episode because we're almost
Okay.
out of time, but I want to thank Usha for coming out and being on our podcast. So if you'd
Yeah.
like to plan a trip to India, contact us. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast, if you're out, perhaps you're listening, let us know. But thank you once again for joining us, and hopefully you enjoy this episode of Riveting Trips with Jeanie Colclough. I'm a Condé Nast top travel specialist, and I look forward to help planning your vacation. Ciao,
Yes,
everybody.
everybody get on board with Jeanie. This is a great, a fun travel advisor. She comes up with all kinds of things. So definitely, I think reach out to her and to me. I'd love to plan things for India or anywhere else.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Jeanie.